In this screencast, I will be doing an overview of the PhoneGap Facebook plugin, but before that, I figured I would do a quick intro to Adobe PhoneGap. Adobe PhoneGap is a free open source framework that allows you to build cross-platform mobile applications using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. It is based on an open source project named Apache Cordova. PhoneGap supports all major phones and tablets currently on the market. This includes iPhones, iPads, Androids, Blackberries, Windows Phones, and so forth. PhoneGap works by opening up a web view in a native application and displaying your HTML, JavaScript, and CSS files, which are stored locally on the device. PhoneGap also gives you access to native features such as camera, contacts, accelerometer, and more through the PhoneGap API. The API is consistent among all of our platforms, allowing you to reuse your code for all the platforms you wish to develop for. For a complete list of our API, go to docs.phonegap.com. Now, let's talk about the PhoneGap Facebook plugin. This plugin allows you to use Facebook's web SDK in a PhoneGap mobile application, and it will map certain API calls to the Facebook native SDKs. This gives you and your users a more consistent mobile experience. So what does that mean? A good example is the login workflow. When logging in to your application, the app will first intercept the login function and send it to the native Facebook SDK. The native Facebook SDK will check to see if the native Facebook application is installed on the device, and then send the login request through the application if it is. If it isn't installed, it will use the web dialog-based method for logging in. Now, let's take a look at the plugin located here on GitHub. If you're interested in following along, go to github.com/phonegap/phonegap-facebook-plugin. Currently, the plugin supports Android and iOS, as those are the only two mobile platforms Facebook has native SDKs for. Follow the README here to get instructions on setting up the plugin. First off, this README will take you through the Facebook requirements, which will generally lead you to developer.facebook.com. Here you'll set up a sample application and also download the necessary SDKs, and by which I mean the Facebook iOS native SDK and the Facebook Android native SDK. Back to the README. After that, it shows the project structure, and then it goes through manual installation for Android and for iOS. When you're ready to follow along, go ahead. But for now, let's move forward. Now let's actually take a look at the workflow of the plugin. To do this, I've set up a sample application in Xcode running the plugin. Here in my index.html, I have the facebook.init method. With it comes, if you've used PhoneGap, if you've used the Facebook API before, this should be familiar. Everything except the native interface to cdv.fb mapping. This is going to be used to communicate between the native SDK and the web SDK. We also include in the plugin a patched version of the Facebook's web SDK. Here it is. And it's also using the native interface object. So when certain cases come along, like if you're trying to do login or a permission request or permission OAuth, it will actually intercept this and send this to our Facebook Connect plugin.m file. For iOS, we have Facebook Connect.m and h, and for Android, it has its own files. What the Facebook Connect file does is it takes the requests from this JavaScript file and it will send it to the native Facebook SDK, and then it will wait for a response and then send that back over to the application. That's how we communicate between the native SDK and the web SDK. As a developer, you only have to use web tech while building your application. You don't have to do any native development if you don't want to. Now let's actually see this plugin in use. First off, I'm going to be showing you guys one of the example apps that comes with the plugin. We include 3. The one that I'll be going over is called Scrumptious. Scrumptious lets you pick a meal, place, and friends you are with. Then it lets you announce this to all of your Facebook friends. It actually has its own README, which you can follow. This is on top of the README that comes in the base of the repo. The reason for its own README is that Scrumptious actually uses Facebook Open Graph. This Open Graph integration allows you to connect real-world actions and objects in your application. Once you go and have your app set up, there's an Open Graph field here which you can go and actually create objects and actions. So for me, I have eating a meal. Going back to settings, you also are going to want to have to set up a Heroku instance to do Open Graph integration. Over here, there should be a button that allows you to set up a Heroku instance. I've already done it and I already have all my fields set. But it's fairly straightforward to follow, and the README that comes with Scrumptious goes into a little bit more detail. Once Heroku's set up, you're going to want to copy over the server folder, all the contents that come in here, onto your Heroku instance. We made calls to the server in our main JavaScript file under www directory and the JS directory. Taking a look at it, here we have all of the meals that are available to us, and they each contain a URL element which actually links to my Heroku instance and passes in certain parameters. Now let's actually take a look at this app in action. I have it open in the iOS simulator, so you can go ahead and click login. In this case, it took me to the browser, but that's only because the iOS simulator doesn't have the Facebook native application installed. So logging in, I can select what I want to eat, cheeseburger, click select. I could select where I am, downtown San Francisco, select done, and I could select friends if I want to. And then I could click announce, and it'll say public successful. And there you have it. Now go ahead and check out, here are some useful links for you to check out. Phonegap.com, a few support options, documentation, the Cordova website. PhoneGap is also on Facebook and Twitter. Here's again the link to the plugin and issues where you can, this is where you can file issues, also on GitHub. And of course, check out the documentation that Facebook provides on developers.facebook.com. That's it for today, and thanks for watching.